Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying their evening so far. My talk is slightly different. I'm not here to tell you about my story or my journey. I'm here to actually take you all on a journey through time, technology, and innovation. And I'm here to tell you about how history has actually shaped the digital world that we live in today. So I have a quick thing I want to do before we start. So who here has a phone on their person right now? And if you do, could you please raise your hand? Now I want you to look around the room a little bit. You can lower them. You could probably tell that it was an overwhelming majority, and I mean, it makes sense. Digital technology has become such a prominent part of our daily lives. It's almost integrated now. Everything just seems to be, especially on our phone nowadays, whether this be the latest TikTok trend, or the latest news, or even just that one group chat that decides your weekend plans for you. All jokes aside, digital technology is so much more than that. It is power, and it is opportunity. I want you guys to look at this image of this tree here. You can quickly notice that one side is very green, very prosperous, while the other side looks rather malnourished and quite sad, to be honest. It just shows here that some parts of the tree received the nutrients it needed, while the other part clearly didn't. It also shows that there's a missed opportunity for growth, that actually the whole tree would have probably grown much faster and would have probably been a lot better had it, as a whole, received the nutrients that it needed. You might be wondering, why am I showing you a picture of a random tree? Well, I want you to think of this tree as a representation of our global society. As we continue to innovate and grow, inequalities emerge. And one of the most overlooked inequalities today is the digital divide, the division between people who have access to technology and those who don't. If we want our world to reach its full potential, bridging this divide will bring us several steps closer. So, what is the divide? Where did it come about? And what's so important about this inequality in particular? Well, it's a long story, but I'm here to tell you all about it. So, let's start right at the beginning of our journey of innovation, right at the roots. In any plant, the roots are considered the foundation. The roots often reflect the strength of the plant itself. And we as a global society started off as hunter-gatherers, all dispersed across the world with the initial goal of survival. Our knowledge on the world was so limited back then that it forced discovery and the initial stages of innovation. Eventually, we discovered the power of agriculture and decided to settle down. This led us to form our own individual civilizations all across the world. Due to our geographic differences, the resources that we had access to but also needed were completely different. This meant as well that the tools that we created and the way we innovated was completely different, simply based on where we were located. Simple example. In modern-day Egypt or Iraq, their land was fertile, and this really suited agricultural farming, which led to the development of irrigation systems, while in parts of the Arctic, they prioritized marine hunting, simply because of their climate conditions. These geographic differences planted the seeds for the greater inequalities which we experience today. Now, moving on to stage 2, the trunk. The trunk of a tree is used to transport the nutrients from the roots to its branches, and in our metaphor, symbolizes a time of increased interconnectivity, a time period where the uneven flow of resources and knowledge actually starts to occur. I want to jump ahead to the 1800s, the time period of the Industrial Revolution. This time period affected global power dynamics drastically. This map here vividly illustrates and shows when different regions and different parts of the world were considered industrialized. As you can see, mainly Europe were the first regions of the world to get industrialized, while there are other parts of the world that remained untouched for decades. Some parts of the world still remain untouched to this day. So while some nations were able to gain the advantages of industrialization, such as mass production, lowered prices, and increased job opportunities, other nations were still struggling for survival. A key factor which drove the disparities that we experience today is colonialism. Colonialism stripped hundreds of countries of their resources and power, and this set them back by decades or even centuries in industrialization and innovation. By the time the digital revolution arrived, many nations, or the colonized nations, were the ones that experienced these benefits, while the colonized were still stuck trying to rebuild their economy down from square one. Simple example is a country like Nigeria. Nigeria, like any other country, has vast potential, but simply due to their unreliable internet infrastructure, is unable to operate at the rate of the rest of the world. This side-by-side comparison shows the rate at which, on the right, you can see the rate at which the British were operating at industrially during the late 1800s. You can see that they're very successful and clearly flourishing. While on the left here, we see Nigeria is simply struggling for survival during that same exact time period. And this is a reflection of the historical injustices that they faced during that time period. This uneven flow and unequal flow of resources and power is what led to the, it reflected the historical injustices that we experience today. Understanding the history isn't about dwelling on the past. It's about recognizing the historical roots and using that knowledge to allow us to reshape the branches of our future. Moving on to stage 3, the branches. The branches of any tree provide the structural support for the leaves, and in our metaphor, symbolize the constant innovation that's taking place in our world. As we continue to innovate and grow, more branches emerge from our tree, which allow us to spread wider, climb higher, and embrace new possibilities. So, I want to redirect you guys back to the initial picture that we had. So, we've talked about the roots, the trunk, and even the branches, but what about the shade? What about the malnourishment? So, as previously mentioned, the malnourishment represents the systemic inequality that many nations face, and this hinders their ability to operate at the rate of the rest of the world. While some nations flourish, some nations are simply struggling for survival. And this puts us in a position where opportunity is out of reach for many. This also puts us in a position where we as a global society aren't able to reach our full potential. And one of the key drivers for this currently, in this day and age, is the digital divide. Earlier I asked who had a smartphone, and almost everyone raised their hand, which, again, makes sense because of how integrated technology is into our daily lives, and how it's almost impossible now to imagine a life without it. And I'm not talking about the potential boredom we'd face, not being able to watch Netflix or call our friends, but think about it from a healthcare standpoint. Think about how many times maybe you've had an abnormal symptom. Call the doctor. After several tries, you finally get them on the phone, and you tell them about your symptoms. And within days, you're able to get a prescription and feel all better. Or from an educational standpoint, especially for all the students here, think about how many research reports we've had to write. The vast majority of us would never initially look at a library when we have all the information that we need in a matter of clicks. Currently, the development of AI is exponential. Until less than a decade ago, we didn't even have our first large language model, but then now we have so many variations of the software, all tailored to our different needs. Oftentimes we forget how fortunate we are to have such easy access to these technologies when there are over 2.6 billion people across the world who live without it every single day. So, I'm not here to tell you that it's an easy thing to bridge this inequality, but it's important to, simply because bridging this inequality sets us up to reduce other global inequalities, such as education or healthcare. Based on the deep-rooted history of this inequality, we can also know that resolving it won't be quick, and it'll take a lot of time, and it'll take unanimous effort. I'm not saying that you have to donate millions to an organization or start some NGO, although that would be very helpful. I'm telling you that it can be as easy as donating your old devices rather than hoarding them in your closet. It can be as easy as supporting organizations such as the ones mentioned on the screen who strive towards digital inclusion and accessibility. It can be as easy as spreading awareness on the matter, just as I am doing here today. So, let's make sure that our tree grows together as one, taking in all the sunlight that we need, making sure that no branch is left in the shadows. Thank you.